Hey, sports fans, if you're heading out to watch the game and need a fill-up, why not join the Fuel Rewards program and earn rewards on Shell Fuel? Members save on their Shell fill-up every day. So sign up free today at fuelrewards.com/ESPN.
We are getting closer. T-minus 2 days and counting to the fight, which might well be the worst sporting event of all time for a million different reasons, and yet I can't wait to see it. Plus, NFL teams making quarterback decisions, a pitcher losing a heartbreaker, and Golic, someone in Massachusetts, won the Powerball. They keep winning these Powerballs, and it keeps not being us.
Well, do you know who lives in Massachusetts right now?
Yes, your son and your daughter-in-law.
My son, Jake, and his daughter, and his. My daughter-in-law, Jenny, have not heard from them. Now, I'm sure they're up already because they are running their Orange Theory Fitness that they own out there. So I don't think it was them because I'm sure I would have heard from them. I'm hoping maybe somebody else opened up and they're still asleep and don't know yet. I'm holding out hope until I hear from Jake or Jenny that they did not win it, but I have my fingers crossed that they won $700 million and that they would share some with me.
You know, the thing about playing Powerball, I never do it. I never buy lottery tickets or anything like that. When we used to do it as a staff, when Bubba would steal our money,
stole all the money. Yeah.
I would throw in my $20. But what's funny is the one time I bought them, I was with a friend of mine. I think I told you this story, and he bought them. And we were getting sandwiches, excuse me, for the kids at like a place where they sold the tickets.
Sure, yeah.
And he bought some, and I thought to myself, if he buys them while I'm here and he wins millions of dollars and I don't, I'll never forgive myself. So the one time I bought them, I walked away thinking, I got like, I don't know, maybe about a 20% chance of winning this thing.
20%?
Like, that's what I think to myself. I feel like if I played this thing, I would have a real chance to win. You have no chance
to win. Well, you have
a
chance. But you have a minuscule chance. I mean, I bought tickets. Did you not buy them yesterday?
I did not, no.
I did. And you know what you do? It's like when I always talk about, to put it in sports terms, when the 1% from college make it to the NFL, but 85% think they are, you know, the percentage of you winning it is minuscule, but a high percentage of us all think about what we would do with the money. You would buy your island. You start to think about different ways you would spend the money that you know you're not going to win, but you think about it anyway. So now we all curse the one person that won it. Though I'm always happy. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like when one person, when it gets that high, and it's like when we would play bingo, big money bingo over at Foxwood Casino, and it's a huge like payout for the game, and you get like 10 people yelling bingo. It's like, oh, hell, I got to share it with 9 other people. Here, man, I mean, it's one person, $700 million, whatever the takeaway is. I don't know, probably what, 400 some mil or whatever it's going to be, but that's pretty sweet.
Absolutely. So some lucky person in Massachusetts is holding a ticket worth $700 million.
God, I hope it's Jake and Jenny. I hope so much it is. You think they'll share with me? Well, what would be the obligation? If one of your kids won $700 million, how long would it take for them to say, Dad, Mom, I'm giving you X amount of money? Well, and would you expect them to?
And what would the X be? Like, I could easily see them, like, I could see my kids taking me on a nice trip to play golf someplace.
You don't think they're giving you any of that money?
Define giving.
Like saying,
writing me a check for $100 million.
You know what? Hey, let's when we give the ticket, let's say it was all of us that bought the ticket, and we'll split it.
Yeah.
You know.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you won the Powerball, are you writing a check to your mother?
To my mother?
Correct.
I'll give my mom some money.
How much money?
I'd give her.
If you won $700 million, how much of it would you give to your mother?
Listen, she plays these little internet gambling places at $20 a time, so I don't need to give her a lot.
She'd be real happy.
Whenever she goes to the casino with us, we give her more money and say, go play the big time slots, and she doesn't. She sticks to like the nickel slot, so I don't need to give her a whole lot.
The current jackpot paid out over 30 payments over 29 years would be $480 million after taxes, which is the way you could do it, and Mark Cuban says you shouldn't do it. Coming up later in this hour, I want to wait till Mikey gets here, and Mark Cuban offered, before there was a winner, extraordinarily good advice, I thought. Well, I can't tell you that it's good advice. He's a billionaire, I'm not. But extremely interesting advice for whoever wins, like serious advice.
Oh, yeah. Listen, when you have a TV show out that's all about lottery winners that blow all their money, there's an issue.
Yeah.
So, you know, there should be some real thinking behind it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're a person who is not accustomed to having practically any discretionary savings.
Here's $480 million.
Yeah. That's you want to talk about a life changer. And unfortunately, it didn't happen to us, so we're here, and there's no island. Let's go off the top. And we start with Rich Hill. He had himself a tough game. So Rich Hill You want to walk through this thing? He's got a perfecto going through 8.
No, he didn't walk through anybody.
Okay. Well done. Go ahead. You take it.
Yeah, he had a perfect game actually going into the 9th. Then there was an error in the 9th. So the perfect game was gone, but he still had a no-hit bid. The only problem is his team didn't score either. So it's zip going into the 10th. They bring him back out for the 10th inning, and he gives up a walk-off home run. A walk-off home run, unbelievable, lost a no-hit bid. Josh Harrison is the first player in Major League history to end a no-hit bid with a walk-off home run. One other time he had a walk-off in extra innings.
It's Harvey Haddix. I'll know this story to the day I die, right? The pitcher was Harvey Haddix?
You know, it doesn't even – yeah, it was Harvey Haddix. Yeah. I'm sorry. 1959.
It was like 12 innings or something.
13th inning. And there's an interesting little tidbit to this one. So 1959 – the Milwaukee Braves, when Joe Adcock hit a walk-off double in the 13th inning. Keep the emphasis on double. In the 13th inning off Pirate starter Harvey Haddix, as you said, the hit was actually a home run. Henry Aaron was on base and didn't run, just walked off the field because it was a home run, so he didn't round the bases. So Adcock only gets a double out of it. Aaron cost the dude a walk-off home run. It went in the books as a double.
For some reason, I didn't remember that. If Aaron didn't come home and touch home plate, at that point, how does the run score? There was a runner on base before. So there were multiple runners on base.
Multiple runners on base.
I remember the story of Harvey Haddix from my childhood.
Yeah, and Aaron just walked off. He didn't round the bases all the way. So, yeah, someone had to score before that. And the dude only gets a double out of it. Aaron cost him a walk-off home run. So this should have been the second walk-off home run to bust up a no-hit bid in extra innings. But Rich Hill's got to be sick after that
one. Again, to be clear, because we now sidetracked it well into the famous Harvey Haddix game, Rich Hill has a perfecto through 8.
Right.
A no-no through 9,
right,
and then gives up a walk-off home run in what was otherwise a scoreless game in the 10th inning to lose.
All the Dodgers have been doing and scoring runs all year, and Rich got to be going, dudes, tonight? You picked the night? Really?
It's quite a night.
Off the top.
What else? All right, Manny Machado had a walk-off home run last night as well.
Yeah, did pretty well for himself. It's his 4th career walk-off home run, and 2 of them have come in the past 6 days. He's the second player in franchise history with 2 walk-off home runs in a span of 6 days, joining Fred Lynn, who did it in consecutive days in May of 1985. So nice night.
Off the top.
O's closer Zach Britton had his save streak come to an end. He had saved 60 consecutive opportunities, and last night that came to a crashing halt.
Yeah, that certainly did come to a crashing halt. As you mentioned, Enterdy had a 7-5 lead going into the 9th, allowed 2 runs on 3 hits, a walk and a wild pitch before being pulled with the score tied. It was his first blown save since September 20th, 2015. Eric Gagne holds the record in Major League, 84 consecutive saves. So Britton is done with his streak.
Off the top.
The Jaguars are going to give the ball to Chad Henne. He will get the next preseason start over Blake Bortles, putting him firmly in the driver's seat to be Jacksonville's starting quarterback when the season opens.
So we heard yesterday when Hugh Jackson for Cleveland named Deshaun Kaiser the starter in preseason. Again, the 3rd preseason game is the dress rehearsal. It's when the starters are going to start the most. So, but the difference here is Brock Osweiler is not going to play, leading you to believe that they're don't want to put him on the field with a chance to get hurt. They're going to try and get somebody else to pick up his $16 million guaranteed contract. Good luck with that. So that'll be interesting. The difference here, Chad Henne starts. Blake Bortles will play with the first unit, so they're going to split time, but Henne gets to start, and as you said, clearly puts him in the driver's seat.
And
off the top.
Speaking of quarterbacks and jobs, Colin Kaepernick supporters demonstrated outside the National Football League's headquarters in Manhattan yesterday. More than 1,000 people were there, many of them wearing Kaepernick's old San Francisco jerseys, crowding the steps of the NFL's offices to show their solidarity with Kaepernick and with his cause.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously, we've been talking about this forever. A bunch of people got in front of the offices saying the same thing, talking, reading poems, being mad at the situation. The NAACP has called for a meeting with the NFL and Roger Goodell to discuss the fate of the quarterback and where it's all going to go. And all that being said, the nice support for him. I don't think it's going to help him get a job anywhere.
I absolutely agree. It's what everyone's talking about. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. I certainly support the people going out to support
absolutely
Colin Kaepernick and standing up for him. Here's the thing. There are two different ways that a person can be in the position that Colin Kaepernick is in. One of the, and by that I mean not having a job in the NFL. One of them is if all of the owners had gotten together, if there was some sort of agreement among them, spoken, whatever it is, if the league was somehow involved in, you can either be blackballed by 31. There are 31 owners.
31,
right?
Right. And the decision maker in Green Bay, right?
I don't believe that there is one blackballing of Colin Kaepernick going on. I believe there are 31 of them. I believe each team is individually deciding not to sign him, and as a consequence, I don't know exactly what good comes from meeting with Roger Goodell, who can't make Steve Bisciotti or Robert Kraft or Woody Johnson or any of these guys sign Colin Kaepernick if they don't want to. So I think that this is all great. It's all great to go out there and show support for Kaepernick, but in my opinion, I don't think any of the owners will – I don't think this will have any impact on them at all.
No, look at the situation. So when Colin Kaepernick first does this last year, everybody is outraged, even though, and they don't like the method he's been going about it, even though one of the methods, by the way, is sending plane loads of food and necessities to where people need it and raising, what is he at, $800,000 of $1 million right now?
Another 100,000 were reported yesterday, yeah.
But people don't like some of his actions, and people were boycotting or not watching NFL games for that. Now it's completely gone the other way to where if he doesn't get a job, there were people at the rally saying, stop watching the NFL and boycott the NFL because he's being discriminated against. So it's completely the other way. To me, the bottom line of this is just what I said, what Greeny said. Roger Goodell is not going to force an owner, the guys he works for, to give Colin Kaepernick a job. That's not going to happen. So basically, when I say your listeners, viewers, anybody who's really interested in this, your option is to put your actions where your mouths are if you don't want to, and don't watch. You had people saying, turn off the TV, don't watch football. Then that's what you do. All of this, while it is all nice, is not, I don't believe at all, going to help give Colin Kaepernick a job. So if you truly don't like what the league is doing, fans, you have a voice. You've always had a voice, and that voice is don't pay for product, don't show up. And if enough of you do it, then it could lead to something. But normally what happens in a lot of different sports is enough people don't do it, and there's people to fill those gaps, and the machine just keeps moving on. That's how it works. So you do have a voice. You're allowed to express your voice. But other than that happening en masse, I don't see any kind of forced issue where any owner is going to give Colin Kaepernick a job if they don't want to.
And as I was watching the coverage of this yesterday, here's the thing that jumped to my mind. When people say, well, you don't have a right to get a job in the National Football League. Here's the problem. The National Football League is not like any other or almost any other job. If Colin Kaepernick was a lawyer, I'm just using the whatever example immediately comes to mind, and there were 31 law firms out there that wouldn't hire him because of his peaceful protest, there would be thousands and thousands of others that would.
Yep.
But in this particular case, if you are a professional football player and you want to work in this country, there's only one place you can do it.
Only 32 spots to do it in.
And so he's basically in a position now where he is not able to work as a result of this. That's it. I mean, that's what's happened. He's not able to have a job because he stood up for something that he believes in. And I don't believe that even people who are I fully understand people who are completely put off by the method that he used to try to make his point.
Right.
I get it. I hear you. I've heard from you. I've read your tweets. I understand your point. It isn't my job to tell you you're wrong. We have a disagreement on how we view the situation. But just bear in mind that what we're basically saying is this guy now, we're telling him you can't work. You can't have this opinion in America. You cannot go out there and make a stand for something you believe in, and you cannot have a job in this country doing that. I can't believe anyone thinks that's okay. That's the part of it I don't understand.
I agree.
That's the part of it just doesn't seem okay. If he was in almost any other line of work where there were millions of opportunities, this wouldn't be a problem because someone would hire him.
Someone would hire him.
One of the 1,000 people standing out there in the street yesterday would have had the ability to hire him. But this is a tiny, tiny, tiny little place that is a monopoly in this country. There's the only real place you can have this job.
They can decide to not hire him, and they're not going to get in trouble for it.
There's nothing anybody can do.
Nothing anybody can do.
And there's nothing Goodell can do. For people who are saying, I see these guys are telling me that this is not like the Michael Sam situation where Goodell might have strongly suggested to some teams that it would be good for the league if you make a move like this. There were teams willing to do that.
Right.
There obviously isn't an owner willing to do this because Michael Sam was not considered an impactful player. There were teams that could use Kaepernick.
Right. That's exactly right.
Chad Henne is about to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Look at the backup situations. I was reading a story with Marty Morningwig talking about Ryan Mallett and his search for the elusive consistency when everyone knows that the elusiveness in that is that he stinks and he always has and he always will. And yet Kaepernick cannot get a job because these guys won't sign him. So he's not allowed to work. They're basically telling him, you can't work at what you do. You can't practice what you do in this country because of your protests. And that's the part of this that bothers me.
It is. And unfortunately, all the protests aren't going to get him a job. And the meetings with Goodell aren't going to get him a job. An owner has to make the decision that says if the situation arises where we need a quarterback, go ahead and hire him. And that hasn't happened, and not many people think it will happen. So there's only one way for, if you're really displeased with that, for a fan to show their displeasure, and you absolutely know what it is.
So that's where we stand as far as that is concerned yesterday. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot. Even if you have insurance with another company, see how much you can save before you switch. And then there is the countdown to McGregor, if you will, to Mayweather and McGregor. I've started shortening to that. I saw it somewhere. Is that not being commonly used?
No, that's the first time I've ever heard it.
It is, really?
You're joining, like the couples?
Yeah.
Like that you're doing?
Well, no, I saw it.
That's exactly what they're doing, like when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie or Ben Affleck and J-Lo and all that and stuff.
What were Ben Affleck and J-Lo again?
Wasn't that something?
They did have a name. Bennifer.
So I'm not really a big fan of doing this.
Well, whatever. So it's Mayweather and McGregor.
What will we be? Golney? Golic, Greeny?
Oh, I thought you were combining yourself with Buster Olney for a second there.
Greenlick? I mean, so let's not do this.
There's none of that that's working for me. No. We're Mike and Mike. Right?
Yes,
we have the same name, and it's worked out pretty well over the years. Anyway, Floyd and Conor are getting set to go into a ring on Saturday. But first, they had to have a stare down, and Teddy Atlas, because this is how we do things now, was analyzing the stare down.
Why not?
It's a pretty good analysis, actually. Here's Teddy.
He basically was sending a very subtle message that I caught, and I'm sure McGregor caught it, that, hey, all the fun and games is over. I don't need to curse. I don't need to do any more of that stuff. You're mine. I am where I belong. I am where I dominate. I am where I am king. You can use all that stuff you want, and you used it for the last 2 months. It ain't going to help you now. Psychologically, big win for Floyd Mayweather before the fight.
Listen, I love Teddy Atlas.
Me too.
But seriously? So we think that Conor McGregor, in staring down Floyd, had that same thought process and thought, oh, God, I'm in trouble now. I mean, is that what we're – listen, I like a stare down as well as the next guy. I like to see, do you look him in the eye? Are you looking away? I mean, God knows I've watched enough Rocky Balboa stare downs to understand where his head was at in the game. But holy smokes, breaking down the old stare down. You got to love it.
You got, for those of you who haven't seen it, you have Mayweather wearing glasses. You have McGregor trying to get a little talking.
They both have glasses on.
Now that I see it, I see McGregor has glasses on, too. I was looking more at Mayweather because I was focused on him as Teddy was talking about how he didn't move. And then, there it is. McGregor took the glasses off. I thought I would have.
And got a little closer to him. You really have to make sure you use some mouthwash or chewing gum. McGregor's chewing gum because you don't want to have bad breath there.
I don't think they mind. Like, I think in some ways that's almost a good thing. Any way that you can repel the other guy, just put him at a bit of a disadvantage. Have him thinking about that a little bit.
So don't brush your teeth up until that point?
I wouldn't brush my teeth
garlic.
For a week leading into that fight. One way or another, they're finally getting ready to step into the ring. And listen, I get it. There's every reason in the world to be repulsed by this event. They're both impossible to root for. It's a terrible event. It will probably be awful. Mayweather fights are always boring, and McGregor has no business being in the ring with him. And yet, I can't wait to see what happens.
I can't wait to see.
I don't know why, but I can't wait.
And something was just added to it to add to my entertainment value of this.
Which is?
A belt.
Yeah.
Did you see there is a belt? This fight obviously means nothing. There's nothing riding on it but two guys getting way, way richer than they already are.
May I?
You may.
There is one thing. Do you see the Marciano family is upset that this is going to count as his 50th win.
50th win, right.
So there is kind of that riding on it. If you agree with it, it's almost like should there be an asterisk next to 50-0 in that his 50th win was essentially an exhibition. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the belt, the championship belt of no championship, because this isn't for any real WBC championship, but the WBC has created a special prize, and it is the money belt. The money belt, it has on it 3,360 diamonds, 600 sapphires, 300 emeralds, 1.5 kilograms of 24-karat gold on green Italian alligator leather, or otherwise known as a Patriot Super Bowl ring.
Listen,
but that's the belt they made up for this thing.
All the more reason to be just repulsed by this event.
I want to know what that belt is worth. I want to know how good the diamonds are. I want to know what that thing is worth.
It is once again another reason. The ostentatious display of this is nothing, and yet we are just standing here making all the money in the world, so much so that we have created a belt made of money.
A belt called the money belt.
The winner.
Called the money belt.
And yet I can't turn away. I don't know if it's like a car accident that you see it happening and you can't for whatever reason. Yeah. And I can't wait for it to be over. But I'm going to watch it.
Mock me all you want. I'll be sitting in front of the TV. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's hard.
I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
All right, we are Mike and Mike, and now we go Mike Cubed, as Mike Golic Jr. has joined us in our studio this morning. And I was very amused as I sat here and just listened to the two of you chatting during the break about what you would do, each of you, if you had won the Powerball yesterday. Now, you're still both holding out hope that Jake Golic and his wife Jenny may have won this.
One winner in Massachusetts. Jake and Jenny, my son and daughter-in-law, live in Massachusetts. So we're hoping for whatever reason that they're not up yet and they have won the Powerball. How great would that be?
I hope they're just sitting at the state lottery office right now waiting for it to open this morning so they can go inside and get it taken care of.
The only thing is they would have told us. I mean, we have this group text that goes nonstop all the time. They would have told us. So that's my fear that they didn't win, that they're up, working in their Orange Theory fitness thing, running that whole thing. And they're up already and know they haven't won. That's why I'm just holding out hope for some reason that they're still sleeping and don't know yet.
I account for user error because God love Jenny, but this seems like a situation where knowing her, she would have the winning ticket and kind of have forgotten about it or misplaced it. We know her enough at this point to know that that is a distinct possibility.
Fair point.
I tell you what, listen, and if you have the $700 million Powerball ticket,
don't tell anyone.
But if you forgot it or misplaced it, we have a problem. I mean, that to me, that strikes me as a real problem.
My last offseason in the NFL, when I was with the New Orleans Saints, the Powerball got up to a pretty big number that summer, and so I think it was every Wednesday whenever they would do the drawing, I would have my ticket and I would come in before it was announced, and I would tell everyone in the locker room, I said, "Hey man, it was nice knowing you guys because the minute I get this and the minute I cash this winning ticket, you will never see or hear from me again."
What would you have done? done. I was listening to you talking about this during the break, but you would just disappear. You wouldn't feel the need to work or do anything. You think you could occupy your days,
You're 27.
your time?
I mean, at some point, you're going to get bored, or you're going to blow all the money.
No, listen, I can joke about a lot of the things that I do, but the first thing you do is all the smart financial stuff of make sure I'm just going to get this to the proper people and say, listen, I don't ever want to have to work a day in my life. I don't want the next of my bloodline to ever have to worry about money again. I said, tell me what the number needs to be for that. Tell me what the number needs to be for me to just live off interest if I want to for the rest of my life, and then show me what the rest is left over, and I'll figure out to do it there. First thing I'm doing is buying a private jet. I'm never sniffing a commercial airport again in my entire life.
I think for a lot of people, that whether they buy it, lease it, whatever, but that's going to be their mode of travel forever. And I would agree with that.
Private jet right to my boat.
Oh, geez.
150-foot yacht.
I'll put a dock on my island for you so you can park your boat.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, the island would be a great play.
I'd have the island. I'm going island. I'm going full metal island. Now, here's the thing. I'm much older than you, and he's much older than both of us. So the point of it is, I do wonder about that. How many people out there, how many people within the sound of our voice right now, if you won some insane amount of money, the Powerball, would continue working in the job that you have? Like, you might like it. You're laughing.
You may like it. Listen, I am 54, and I'm certainly getting closer to the 19th hole in a drink than the 27-year-old who's just starting in this. So we're in different spots of what we would do in that situation.
Like, I'm thinking, if I were a professional golfer, if I were, well, Phil Mickelson's towards the end of his career, if I were Ricky Fowler or one of those guys, and I won $700 million, I wouldn't stop playing golf. I don't think maybe I wouldn't work quite as hard, but maybe I would work even harder. I don't even know, but I don't think I'd stop doing that.
The thing is, you look at other things like that, though, and you look at golf, and for you, it's a leisure activity. It's something you look forward to as fun in your life. Everything we know, because a lot of people look at the job we do and say, oh, I would love to do that job. We always do that with somebody else's job, and that's not to say I don't love this job. That's not to say you guys don't love this job, but you're always going to perceive it differently than looking at somebody else's stuff.
What would you do, Golic?
In all honesty, I would not get up at 4 o'clock every morning for the next 3 years, and I would call games on the weekends. I would do college games on the weekends.
See, that's my point. You'd still do something like this.
But just on the weekends.
Yeah.
I've called college games a lot, but I always did it along with this job.
Right.
So it was always radio all week, radio, TV all week, studio shows all week, and then go do games.
Listen.
Now it would just be a game. Now I go be out in Arizona, probably do Pac-12 games, just hang out on the West Coast, fly in on my jet, fly out on my jet, and enjoy life that way.
It was in those days. It was like on Friday morning, Golic was in Morgantown.
Oh yeah, some little rinky-dink radio place doing the show.
I mean, those were the days. But yeah, see,
kind of like what you're going to be doing soon.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people would enjoy what they do or would find something else that they enjoy doing.
Right.
If money was no longer a motivation, what would you do? That's the question I should be asking.
That would be it, yes.
If money was ceased to be a what percentage of people do you think in America work because of the money? 90-something
Oh, yeah,
percent,
I think
right?
a ton of people, yeah.
So there's only a tiny percentage of people in America who have enough money that it wouldn't make any difference if they stopped working, and yet they choose to continue to. But, I mean, these CEOs that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, they keep going, they keep doing it. They're still working harder. They work harder than almost anyone else you know. They're constantly traveling and all that kind of stuff, so they keep working.
It's the idea, though, that we always hear about with NFL guys where they say, you pay me for during the week, Sundays are for free. Like turning on the microphone and coming and talking, that's great. It's doing any of the preparation beforehand. It's watching and breaking down tape. It's all those other things that once I'm at that, why am I going to bother to do that stuff? Right. I'll show up and play if you want me to, if you're still going to allow me to do that. But besides that, I can find other ways to monopolize my time, and doing all of that stuff in the public light to me is too much risk. Once I've got that money, I don't want to be in a place where someone else can access me. That's why the island is tremendously appealing. I don't trust anyone else within an inch of the money I've got now. Why am I going to do that with that kind of dollar
If you
amount?
won the $480 million, how would you split it up amongst the family? Would you give us any?
Split it. That's rich. Witness protection. You will never see me again. I am gone. Audi 5000, bro.
You know what? You know who agrees with you is Mark Cuban. Mike Golic Jr. is here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Mark Cuban is a guy who knows what it's like to go from not having practically any money to being a billionaire. He did that in his life. He didn't do it by winning the lottery. He did it by inventing broadcast.com and then selling it, I think, to Yahoo for several $billion. I might be wrong on I forget who bought it, but one of the big
got bought for billions.
Tech companies bought it, and he now has billions of dollars. So he gave an interview to the Dallas Morning News in which he went through a list of all of the things that the person who wins the Powerball, and there is apparently one winner in the state of Massachusetts, should do with all of that money. I'll read through it. It's very interesting. We'll get to that coming up.
Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities. Online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
All right, for everybody that just joined us back, all right, tell them what you said.
Well, here's the thing.
My son Mike said if he won the lottery, he'd go be the janitor at Notre Dame, be the guy that let Rudy into the room, and you would write books.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't believe you would be the janitor at Notre Dame and you would write books. That's what you would choose to do. And you said to me, what would you do? And I said, not either of those things. To which you said, just say it.
What would you do? Just sit around marinating in your own fat? Which I realize in so many ways was an inappropriate reference.
You think?
In part because you don't even have fat anymore. And the second is I took the way you said what you said as though the notion that we would do anything at all was ridiculous, that you would just sit on my island and like just do nothing with have like drinks brought to you and all that.
I believe you do something. I can't believe my son. I'm hurt by that comment, just so you know.
Junior's hysterical. Like, I mean, I can't believe how funny he thought that was.
It was mean.
It was. And
it was so mean.
Not only was it mean, but I did it. We have like a forced out that leads to a 10-second break. Some of the country knows what I'm talking about, and some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. But I did it right into that so that there was no opportunity to rebut.
What am I going to rebut?
Well, you could say you don't have the fat anymore, and you could say what you said, which is you didn't mean you would just sit on a beach drinking Mai Tai.
I wouldn't just sit on a beach marinating in my own fat.
So what would you do?
I would find. I said I would probably call college games. That only on the weekends. Do a little. Watch some of the games. Watch my tape. Fly in on my plane. Fly out on my plane.
You did say that. I shouldn't have said what I said. I just was looking for something to say.
I'm marinating in my fat. Junior here can't stop laughing.
Can't even compose.
He's hysterical. Okay.
I can't even compose myself long enough to contribute to this conversation in the ways I truly want to.
It's like any other
I
day.
sat here the other day and I had Herm Edwards run a really good Game of Thrones episode for me, and that still wasn't the meanest thing that has now happened going up against a hard out on this show.
You weren't here. One of the greatest spoilers ever.
I heard about it.
And Herm had no clue how bad it was.
Oh, man, I need a
you and
cigarette
I
right now.
both know that when we're not here, when you or I are not here, so many things happen that you don't even know about, right? Don't hear about. I heard about that.
Oh, my
I heard
God.
that Herm gave 12 hours after the episode gave a terrible Game of Thrones spoiler.
I walked by two Herm's over there getting ready for SportsCenter this morning. He's over there with the AM crew, and I walk by and he just gives me one of these waves. Just looks over at me.
He has no idea what he did.
You know what? Part of me thinks he knows, and he's just twisting the knife now that he's
How
kinda
upset
sick.
were people generally?
Oh,
man.
The Twitter that came in. I mean, and we were just innocent bystanders there on that one. That just, had the Herm Edwards drive-by, and that was it.
Right.
Holy smoke.
He came in, just dropped a Game of Thrones bomb and left?
Well, he did it. I mean, were you talking about going to break?
Right.
Greeny, they were down to 10, counting in our ear.
Yeah.
They got to 5, and between 10 and 5, Herm said, I'm just going to give you a little one. To Mike, because I saw it, and we weren't saying anything. Nobody here wanted to know. I'm just going to give you a little one. And, I mean, on 3, 2, 1, that's when he said it. And it went to break. We're like, no way, that just happened.
We couldn't take tweets the rest of the show because they were all just people cursing out Herm.
And when Herm's on, this was with 3 hours to go in the show, and that was the end of the show. We lost Mike. He was done. Because now he knew what happened.
Here's the thing. How do you, like when that show actually airs, I don't watch it, but I've seen that Game of Thrones has, even if people love all these other shows, but there is an attachment that the Game of Thrones fans have to it that supersedes that I've seen of practically anything. Things I can't remember. You have to go back maybe to The Sopranos or something like that for the last time people seen
Breaking Bad.
That totally fixated.
Breaking Bad, people are on that.
Well, whatever. It doesn't even matter comparing them. The point is, do you have to stay off social media when the show airs, and do you have to stay off it until you've seen it?
So here's what I did. And normally, if I'm watching the show live, I'll tweet it, but I'll make sure I do it in a way that's not going to give anything away to someone the next day. But even so, I made the decision. I went to a John Mayer concert that Sunday night, and I missed Game of Thrones live. And so I responded to that. I didn't go on social media from the time I got to the concert. My last tweet went out at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and I was not on Twitter through noon the next day. I just didn't look at it through this whole show, and I told everyone in here, I said, I have vacuum sealed myself in here. You are the only ones that can hurt me. I just asked you not to. And we've got enough people around here who hadn't seen it also because they get up early for the show like a lot of people. And Herm was the one that came in here and just like, nah, I'm good. Boom.
And I mean, boom.
How about now? So now here we are Thursday.
Thursday, if you haven't seen it by now.
If you haven't seen it by now, then you're
on your own.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm being told we have the sound of this so that I could see
we can play it
Herman.
now.
Okay, so we can play it now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so because I've heard about this, but let's actually see how it looked. Here was Herman Edwards.
You and I both watched it, Herman. We can't say anything.
Can't say anything.
The young guy
I'm getting
didn't
to
see
it later.
Wait a minute. I'm going to give you one. I got to say one. I give you one. And it's bad. The bad guy's got a dragon, and I'll leave it at that.
Great. They were counting down. I mean, it was to break. We were stunned. It was one of the biggest giveaways you could do.
At a critical point in the series, you could argue this is some of the most seismic happenings in the show. I mean, the ramifications for this going forward, I don't want to get too technical, but this could be the key that gets the Night King and the Army of the Dead past the wall, defeating thousands of years of magic. This is heavy stuff we're talking about that Herm just gave away wantonly.
Gave away.
Wanton disregard for my thoughts and feelings.
Not going to lie to you, I didn't understand a word you just said, but it certainly sounds important.
Many of the people in the country did, believe me.
But what I will say is this, that I remember, I mean, what is the spoiler etiquette on movies? Because like the last Star Wars movie, which is, I mean, how long ago is that now? It's over a year, right? So at this point, you can talk about the things that happened in it, right? So a very important character dies in it, right? I mean, I didn't see it, but a very, very, very important character in it dies. And the day after, it opened on Friday night, whatever it was. The next morning, I'm in the diner eating my breakfast, and one of the things that I've noticed is happening is people are taking pleasure in just tweeting the fact that he died. Like they just boom, boom, boom. There's a million of them that he died. And I remember tweeting, if you're just randomly tweeting that because you're just trying to ruin people's enjoyment of this, just because it's fun to you, like what lower level
I would never do that.
Person than that? You gain literally nothing from it.
I agree.
And you're just ruining other people's
I would
fun.
never do that because when we give out our reviews on Twitter, the donuts, I never spoil anything.
No, you can't do that.
No, you just give away, what you thought of the movie. You can't do that. Yeah, I don't know what the exact rules are, but certainly for Game of Thrones, that next day you got to let people get probably a day or two. You do 24, 48 hours at the most. I'd say more 24.
I give a good 24 just because it's a show that's on late enough that if you've got early work, like a lot of people on this show do on Monday morning. So give them till
after work on Monday to be able to see it.
You get 24 hours.
How about the shows that get released and then people binge watch them, like House of Cards?
Like House of Cards,
Like you just can never talk about that, right? Because someone is planning that whenever they're planning to watch
That's kind of like a movie. Like it's different because the timeline is different. Right. You're not beholden to someone else's schedule.
All right, we didn't get to anything I meant to there, but it worked. We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot, even if you have insurance with another company. See how much you can save before you switch. I promise that we will get to all the things that we meant to talk about there, including Mark Cuban's advice for the luckiest person in America and one of the most fascinating finishes in sports history, plus a legendary record that is about to fall under ridiculous circumstances. Stay with us.
The City Double Cash Card presents Tips for Cheering on Your Kids. Number 9, be supportive.
Hey, son, stay focused on everything I'm shouting.
You heard your father. Encouraging words filled with pressure.
Go get him. We love you, buddy. There it is.
Wouldn't it be great if everyone said what they meant? The City Double Cash Card does. It lets you earn double cash back with 1% when you buy and 1% as you pay. The City Double Cash Card. Double means double.
We are back. We're better than ever, though we're not quite as good as someone in Watertown, Massachusetts, who won the Powerball. I've actually seen now online pictures of the store where it was purchased.
All right, that's not Jake.
So we're assuming that's not Jake and Jenny Golic.
No, Jake and Jenny. They don't live there. They operate their business in Hingham, Massachusetts.
So I don't know exactly where that is in relation to Watertown.
It's not Watertown, so they didn't get that. You're right, unless they bought the ticket.
Yeah, they could be diversifying their ticket portfolio.
Good point.
Yeah,
good point.
Going to different stores.
There's still hope.
Yeah.
There's still some
We still
hope.
got it. Jake, if you're out there.
We'll see what happens. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Jam-packed guest list this morning on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And it's an interesting question that I threw out here this morning is what jobs are there, when maybe you're in one, that you would continue to do if you won the Powerball? Like, there were reasons to do a job besides making money, and some people love what they do. So Russell Brown tweets, I work as a correctional officer in a psych prison. No way in hell I'd keep working.
Well, there you go.
Understandable.
Timothy tweets, I would continue working, but not at my job. I'd open up my own bakery or my own burger joint.
See, I think that's what everybody may have that thought in their mind of, if I had the money, I would do this because I love it. And you'd see a lot of small businesses open up along those lines, I think.
See, along those lines, though, is like I wouldn't feel inclined to turn it into a business. Like, I would just like to learn to do a lot of those things. Like, I'd probably learn how to play the guitar. I'd go back and relearn how to play the piano. I would learn how to cook better. I would do all of these things for my own satisfaction, but I feel no need to share them with anyone else. Those are mine.
I think a lot of people would start foundations, obviously, to help raise money for causes they may believe in. For me, it would be a marinade to marinate my own fat.
I seem to have touched a nerve there.
No, you didn't.
Golic's fatty marinade sounds like it's be pretty hot in the shelves.
Yeah. Junior would be like living in the movie Groundhog Day, is what it basically sounds like to me. You would just do that. You would try and create the perfect day. I actually like the idea of opening a restaurant. I would love to own a restaurant.
Those are tough businesses.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
But to Mikey's point, if you didn't care if it made money, and you just wanted to have like the coolest, best restaurant in the world where you just, whatever food it is that you particularly like, you served it extraordinarily well, and you made it into like a super hot place, and you didn't care if it made money or not. Like, a lot of things would be fun to do if you didn't care if they made money
part
or
of it.
not.
Yeah.
So Mark Cuban has some interesting advice. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Tell me how many of these you think you would follow if you won the Powerball. This is what Mark Cuban, again, a person who knows what it's like to go from not having practically any money. He grew up in, what's the name of the town in Pennsylvania? We were there once. We did the show from his town, and we called him. He came on the air because we were there. I
don't remember that.
He's from
Pittsburgh.
But it's a small town outside. It is it's a suburb of Pittsburgh.
Oil City. There's very few towns in Pennsylvania, I know.
No, he's from a small town in Pittsburgh. Doesn't matter. The point is that he went from that to being a billionaire.
Right.
So here are his pieces of advice. Number one, first thing you have to do is hire a tax attorney. That's number one.
I would agree with that.
Because you pointed it out. Like, if you want to share it with your family and all that, there'd be tax implications. Number two, don't take the lump sum. You don't want to blow it all in one spot.
That's where you can run into trouble, because if you win it and you actually have a decent portfolio and have managed your money well, or have people that manage it, I would disagree with that and say I have good people through the years that look over what I've done and what I've collected, that I would feel comfortable giving that to them. But on the other side of that, there is the TV show out there that shows lottery winners blowing all their money. So I understand what he's saying.
Yeah, I guess that would be my follow-up question. Is this advice predicated on actually making me more money in the most ideal terms possible? If I'm doing everything the exact right way, am I going to reap more money long-term taking the annuity or the lump sum? If the only outlier is my personal conduct, I'm taking the lump sum.
Next, he says, and this is the one that I thought was really interesting. If you weren't happy yesterday, you won't be happy tomorrow. It's money, not happiness.
I disagree with that completely.
Yep.
Completely.
Next, if you were happy yesterday, you're going to be a lot happier tomorrow. It's money. Life gets easier when you don't have to worry about the bills.
Yeah, amen to that.
Next, tell all your friends and relatives no. They will ask. Tell them no. If you're close to them, you already know who needs help and what they need.
Right.
Feel free to help some, but talk to your accountant before you do anything. And remember this, no one needs $1 million for anything. No one needs $100,000 for anything. Anyone who asks is not really your friend.
That I understand, and I think that's very easy to type out and very difficult to do.
Well, it depends. You would share the money with your family because you want to.
Right.
Not because Mike would tell you, I need $171,000.
I get it, but how far does the family go?
Oh, listen.
What's the extension?
We see guys run into this with a lot less money. I mean, money with an M still comes with these problems. That's why it's always easy to say this stuff to guys in the NFL, but sometimes the family can be the quickest one to turn.
Well, I mean, that show, the 30 for 30, broke. I mean, wasn't it Bart Scott who said, I'm taking care of 4 houses households of people. I mean, so where do you turn that off? That, like I said, that's an easy one to write, but really, really tough to be practical
I'd
about.
set up like a friend fund. Like if you could make a separate portfolio almost, or like an LLC that you can just draw funds for that. Like if someone needs a little bit of money, a friend fund. That's got to be a thing.
Two more from Cuban. Okay. You don't become – this is advice Mark Cuban offered to whomever it is that wins the Powerball. And, again, that has been done, and someone in Watertown, Massachusetts had the only winning ticket. Cuban says, you don't become a smart investor when you win the lottery. Don't make investments. You can put it in the bank and live comfortably forever. You will sleep a lot better knowing you won't lose money.
I agree with that. I would never try and be my own investor. But then again, I'd be going to the casino a lot as well, which probably wouldn't be the smartest move in the world.
That's probably worse.
I'd be like Birdman and sleep on a mattress of $1 million every house I had.
And Cuban shared one last bonus tip. Be nice. No one likes a mean billionaire.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. All right, let's get back to some sports here. Mm-hmm. This I find interesting. One of the great records, Mike Golic Jr., I'm more curious to get your perspective on this, because your father and I grew up in an era where records were extremely significant.
Yeah, held in very high regard. Yes,
and the most famous one was the home run record. I guess the two home run records, really. Yeah. The Roger Maris' 61 and Hank Aaron ultimately getting it to 755. But we're old enough to even remember when it was Babe Ruth's record and when that was broken. And there were a few others out there that were really big. Like these numbers were magical and they meant something, and they carried sort of a mythical quality about them that I feel has just kind of gone out of sports to some degree. Maybe because there are so many more numbers in sports, because people of a younger generation now with analytics and everything else are so fixated on so many numbers that you can't be quite as fixated on just a select few. But the numbers 56 and 755 and all those will always have a very special meaning. And one of them, candidly, is 49-0. 49-0 is a mythical record. When I was a kid, everybody I knew Rocky Marciano was 49-0. And that was the number. That number is going to fall on Saturday.
Yeah, it is.
49-0 is going to be displaced by 50-0. And people aren't really talking about that. And I guess part of that is that these numbers just don't mean what they used to. But Rocky Marciano, is it his son who said this? Rocky Marciano Jr. said, no matter what happens, I don't think this should go towards Mayweather's professional career record. This fight, to me, isn't a true boxing match. So if you stop and think about it, if you want to say this is one of the most hallowed records in sports history, Marciano's 49-0. This is about to be broken by Floyd Mayweather in a fight against a guy who has never stepped into a boxing ring in his entire life. So this would be sort of like if Hank Aaron had stepped to the plate with 714 career home runs and they brought some guy in from the stands who was extremely good in his weekend beer league and let him pitch to Aaron and let Aaron hit the 715th home run off him. That would have caused enormous uproar. Why is no one talking about this? Is it because no one cares about that record?
I think there's so much time in between it, and I think boxing has fallen off a little bit that I think the care is less. And also, I mean, if you want to start breaking it down, do you look at some of Rocky Marciano's fights? If their family is going to bring this up, and part of else what they brought up is the heavyweight division, what Rocky fought in, there's more knockouts. The hits are harder, where in the lighter weights you're trying to outpoint, where you're not going to separate by weight class. But if you want, and they open the door, do you want to start looking at fights? I have 5 of them. When he fought Harold Mitchell in 51, he was 4-14 was Harold Mitchell, never won another bout, won 4-17. Keen Simmons was 8-8, ended up 9-22. Gilly Ferran was 4-9, ended up 4-12. Gilbert Cardone in 1948 had one professional fight at the time Rocky Marciano fought him, was 0-1 at the time, ended up 0-4, only had 4 in his professional career. And Billy Hardman in 1948 was 1-4 at the time of the fight and ended up 1-6. Now, they were professional fighters, so I understand it from that point, but is this what we're going to start doing, is breaking down every single fight? Do we look at then all the big fights who had more bigger fights in this? I get what they're saying, and I think if I were the family of Rocky Marciano, I would be saying, wow, the record's going to get broken on kind of a joke fight. That's the thing. If this was fight 37,
right,
nobody would be saying a word.
All great fighters have had their share of tomato cans along the way.
It's like we see and we talk about in college football. There was that game, I figure it was North Carolina and someone, that ended on a play that should North Carolina, Miami, that ended on a play that because of the rules shouldn't have happened.
Right. That's right.
And they won on that play, and people were saying, well, because it was the last play, we should be able to go back and change that retroactively. And the argument you always heard was, if it had happened in the middle of the game, there'd have been nothing you could do about it. But there's always a different feeling about what happens at the end. That's why we prioritize fourth quarter performances, end of game things, all because there's that added intensity because deadlines drive that anticipation. But I think all of this changes just because boxing's not popular. No one cares enough about boxing to care enough about this record. We just had one of those big number records fall in the NBA 2 years ago when the Warriors won 73 games in the regular season. And we cared an awful lot about that because we care an awful lot about the NBA right now.
And look at the run for Russell Westbrook in the triple doubles.
Yeah.
You know, with the big O. I mean, we talked about it every single day because basketball really has taken a bump in popularity.
And to your point, all of those other things get talked about because we talk about the circumstances that surround everything about breaking that record. We talk about what the Bulls did during that season, what makes one different or better from the other. We start contextualizing it when we care. There has to be a baseline level of interest in the sport overall, and it's not there with boxing.
So that's what we're basically saying. It's not that we stopped caring about records because, Mike, you said it's a long time ago. Well, older records should only grow in stature.
Right.
How about when we had the first Triple Crown winner since 1978? The longer you wait for those things, it should get better. It should be even more special when they are finally
What we thought about with the home run records. Look how we were following those until the fallout of it. But
that's what I was actually initially thinking is, was the notion of these big records, did we become kind of turned off to them by the lack of significance?
No, we got turned off in baseball because of the
That's what I mean.
It was just in baseball.
If Albert Pujols probably too old at this point to get there. Well, we talked about this recently. If Bryce Harper someday or Mike Trout someday, one of these other guys,
when you're doing this show, you're the only one to be up here doing the show now when they're going to break the record. So,
well, yeah, I mean, we see all these things about pace, about where guys were in their career relative to some of the home run kings, and you see Trout and Harper and Mike Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton, all of these different guys on pace for certain records like this. And yeah, take it out to that eventuality.
If Giancarlo Stanton is at 760. Right, the record is he's 2 away, he's 3 away, he's 4, whatever it is. At that point, is ESPN breaking into programming with every one of his at bats?
Yes.
Is CNN breaking into programming with every one of his at bats?
Tell me where baseball is at that point, because you can say right now, I'd probably say yes, but whenever that takes place, because to your point, on down the line, I don't know how many years away we would have to
call
be
it
from
15,
that.
roughly 15
Call
years.
it 15 years. We always talk about what place are all these sports going to be in 15, 20 years. Baseball could be an entirely different place. It's already struggling with a younger demographic. Maybe that manifests itself now 15 years later when you're another generation removed, and all of a sudden baseball looks more like boxing.
Plus, Roger Maris was revered, correct, for the 61. So when it was beaten, there was like, wow, Henry Aaron revered, right?
Yes.
And when Bonds broke his record, now you tell me this, and again, I agree, where is baseball then? Will people be watching that more to see the record get beat, or the fact that Bonds will no longer hold the record because Bonds is despised, unlike Roger Maris and unlike Hank Aaron?
Right. I think that should only add to it. But Mikey brings up an interesting question. And we could do this with all the sports if we wanted to. But let's project. Let's call it 15 years because it's a nice, easy number, and it's not so far out into the future that it's impossible to predict. If we were just to assign the value of 10 to all of the sports right now, every sport right now is at a level of 10. What level will they be at 15 years from now? So you mentioned baseball. If baseball right now is at 10, 15 years from now, do you expect it to be 8? Do you expect it to be 20? Well, the NFL. I'll start. The NFL, in my opinion, is going to be at a lower number 15 years from now than it is now, in my opinion, without question. So, if it's right now at 10, I'm going to make it a 5. And if the NBA is right now at 10, I'm going to make it a 15. I believe the NBA is headed in one direction and the NFL is headed in the other.
I don't know how you can even project that.
based purely, if nothing else, on your own guess. You're just looking and reading the tea leaves and seeing where you think the world is.
Yeah, to me, it's basically seeing trends, and the things that have always been mass appealing about football have been the violent nature of the game, and we seem to be, at least in smaller increments, becoming less and less comfortable with that on certain avenues. And as we're going to continue to find more and more out about the science, that's going to be the deciding factor. But 15 years from now, football is going to be less popular just because it was, I mean, again, we're measuring against its own monster success. So football is going to be less popular. Baseball seems to be the one, if you're going to look for the bottom to drop out of one of the, we call it four majors, including hockey, but I think that line's going to be a little more even for them. I think baseball's got the most room to have the bottom drop out just because we know already, we hear about, I mean, the commissioner talks about wanting to do things to attract younger fans. That's the lifeblood of your fandom. That's the lifeblood of your league.
Sometimes I wonder about baseball and whether a lot of that, I think baseball is the one that I think has the biggest potential to stay kind of right where it is, because they have so many things in place that make them a little bit bulletproof, which is to say, at least as a business, because and then we're going to get into the weeds on this kind of stuff, but they provide something for in the television universe that is so extraordinarily valuable, that is something that a meaningful number of people watch that many times, that their local regional networks and all that kind of stuff. People look at the national television numbers for Major League Baseball, and they connect a lot of importance to that. And I'm not suggesting it doesn't matter, but it maintains a lot of value. Baseball maintains a lot of value based on a lot of other things, and people still like to go to the ballpark and all of that. My guess is that they're going to remain somewhere around the same. I guess the point I was trying to get at in all of this is, I think that if that record falls in Major League Baseball, it is not going to be anywhere near the big deal that it was when it happened the last time.
Oh, no. I mean, already when the numbers aren't, it's already less in popularity. So I don't see it gaining any more popularity.
And just think about in general how many more things you're competing with for interest at this point than you were at the time that record fell. We already know that the population of people that's actually interested in sports is much smaller than we give it credit for, operating in our own little world here.
Mike, we're brought to you in part by DraftKings. Try daily fantasy for free at DraftKings. Use the code Mike now at DraftKings.com. And obviously, fantasy is one of the big reasons that people are becoming more and more sports fans, more and more people coming into the tent. And one of the big questions regarding fantasy football right now, obviously, is about Odell Beckham Jr. and the injury that he suffers. Does it mean he misses week one? Does it start to linger on further into the season than that? And how does that impact the fantasy value of a guy like Odell, who might have been right at the top of almost anybody's board?
Yeah, I saw Matthew Berry talking the other day and basically saying for a lot of people, if you leading up to drafts, this is going to bring him further down the board, because this is a guy that was probably going to be the second, third receiver taken, which might put you in the top 5 of your draft. And so looking on down that, just because, and we always hear this with ankles, especially if you get into that higher ankle sprain area, is these things tend to linger if you don't have time for it to heal.
I would, if it were me. Now I do more the weekly, like we're all in our group thing for the DraftKings, and that's an easy choice. If he's not playing, you can't play him. So, but a draft, I knowing you're going to maybe miss the week, I hear you on the ankle, but to me, he'd still be worth the risk. Worth the risk to take up at that high slot.
Yeah, I guess it would start to creep into your mind a little more, like, all right, you've got an injured Odell Beckham Jr., or all of a sudden do we start to bring up A.J. Green? Now, Andy Dalton is not Eli Manning by most people's accounts, but that's still an offense that's got some other weapons that can give him space to operate, and he's still easily one of the 4 best receivers in football. So does a guy like that start to creep into the picture more now than he would have before?
4 best receivers in football. So I heard this debate the other day. I was in the car, and Peter Rosenberg and Dave Rothenberg were yelling at each other over this, which was fun to listen to. But if Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Odell Beckham are sort of, I think, by everyone considered to be the 3 best, right? Those are the 3. So at 4, you're putting A.J. Green comfortably ahead of Dez Bryant. That was the debate. They were yelling at each other about, which I just found entertaining to listen to.
I would go A.J. Green.
Comfortably ahead of Dez Bryant.
Yes.
Interesting, because the argument on the other side, I don't know that I would agree with that. The argument on the other side is that Bryant may not have the same kind of numbers those guys do, in the same way that sometimes Michael Irvin didn't have the huge numbers other great receivers did, because they have so many other options. Between Jason Witten and then last year Zeke Elliott and that great line and all that kind of stuff, I would put Bryant on a level directly with AJ
Are you talking
Green.
about for fantasy or just for
No,
real?
no, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you're sitting there talking about the numbers.
Sorry.
I mean,
I misspoke.
Yeah.
I didn't clarify the question.
Yeah.
I don't mean as a fantasy guy now. I just mean as a player.
To me, it's not head and shoulders. To me,
that.
then just football, it's not head and shoulders. I would take A.J. Green, but it would be a very close thing.
I don't know that I wouldn't take Des Bryant.
I have A.J. Green, and maybe this is just because I know – I mean, I've got guys that certainly have played with both, but just hearing the stories about A.J. Green from practice and seeing what he does, I mean, we can look on Sundays and see what this guy does. I think he impacts the game at a greater level. To your point, yeah, they've got other options there, but when you are the marquee option, you tend to get used to that level, and maybe there's something to that, but A.J. Green's skill set just jumps out at me. I don't think he's a guy that gets talked about nearly enough.
Circling it all the way back, Antonio Brown and Julio Jones are the only receivers with a higher average draft position on ESPN.com than Odell Beckham Jr. We'll see where that winds up moving, if at all, as a result of the injury.
Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State. Online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities. Online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I have the L.A. call also.
Okay.
So you just heard the Pittsburgh call
right.
of the walk-off home run last night that breaks up the no-hitter in the 10th inning.
I love when he's going, where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's gone.
There's a similar – I heard this on the air earlier this morning. AM 570, this is the Dodgers version of the call.
Fly ball, left field, hit well. Going back, Granderson, he leaps up. Did Granderson catch it? No, it's out of the ballpark. And Rich Hill, who did not allow a base hit in 9 innings, gives up the leadoff home run.
So that, again, they couldn't tell for a second there, Granderson, because Granderson, for those of you listening on the radio, he jumps to try and catch it, and he slams into the wall, and he goes flat down on his back, and it's not obvious immediately whether he caught the ball or not. It sneaks out of the ballpark for a walk-off home run to lead off the 10th inning in a game in which the pitcher had a no-hitter, and the breaking up of the perfect game was based on an error. So he really did everything you could humanly do for 9 innings to win a baseball game.
He absolutely did, and not only doesn't get it, but doesn't get the perfect, doesn't get the no-no, and then gets the loss to boot. I mean, that is talk about a roller coaster ride. Really incredible.
Just very few instances in the sport where you can be the sole reason, essentially, that your team is even in the position in the game it's in. You can be winning the game for your team the entire way and then actually be the direct reason that your team loses as well. It's rarefied air in that sense.
Yeah, it really is.
Meanwhile, we are both fans of Daniel. All three of us, I think, are fans of Daniel Tosh.
Yes.
And I was sent a great Daniel Tosh quote that sort of contradicts Mark Cuban's advice. So I read you earlier Mark Cuban talking about his advice for whomever won the Powerball, and there was one winner in Watertown, Massachusetts, apparently. And one of the things that Cuban said is, it's money. It's not happiness. If you were unhappy yesterday, you're going to be unhappy today.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Tosh doesn't seem to agree.
I don't either.
This is an old quote, but it's a good one. Daniel Tosh tweeted, "Money doesn't buy happiness. Do you live in America? Because it buys a wave runner. Have you ever seen a sad person on a wave runner? Have you? Seriously? Try to frown on a wave runner. You absolutely can't."
I agree.
So that's a pretty good quote, I think, from Daniel Tosh.
I hearken back to that quote a lot. It's pretty memorable.
It can buy you some happiness. There's no doubt about it. Maybe not make you completely happy, but it will be able to put some smiles on your face.
As Joe Pesci said in the movie Easy Money, an underappreciated movie, Rodney Dangerfield, Easy Money. Do you remember that movie, Mike? It's way before Junior's time. Rodney Dangerfield and Joe Pesci, who at that time was not famous at all, is one of his buddies in that movie. And when he says money can't buy you happiness, Joe Pesci says, well, at least you can choose your own kind of misery. And that sort of could be the other way to look at it.
We are hoping at this point, again, my son Jake and his wife Jenny live in Massachusetts. We are hoping they haven't said anything and are just driving to us to show us the winning ticket. We're still holding out some hope that that's happening.
I hope they're driving to us with duffel bags full of cash in the back seat.
I don't think they
maybe like a
cash
Breaking Bad
already.
style barrel full of, whatever it would be, $400 million. It'd be a lot of barrels.
A lot of barrels.
$80 million and like 6 barrels in Breaking Bad. They'd need a lot of barrels.
How close together are Watertown and Hingham?
No idea.
That's the real question.
No idea. Somebody find that out.
Yep.
Hembo!
Because that's where they live.
Yep.
Farouk tweets at us through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. I guarantee Conor McGregor is at least as good as a few of the tomato cans Marciano fought on his way to 49 wins. I can't speak to that one way or the other.
I can't either.
Maybe we'll have some better idea of it after we watch the fight, but all I'll say is Conor McGregor is not a professional boxer. He got certified to fight this fight because there's a ton of money involved in it, and the fight is taking place only because there's money in it. He is not a professional fighter. He's never done this
He's
before.
a professional fighter.
He's not a professional boxer.
So Watertown and Hingham are 20 miles apart. Could be a possibility.
I wouldn't give up yet. At Ravens Football tweets, Marciano never fought a Pacquiao, a Mosley, or a Canelo, or a De La Hoya, but Floyd has.
That's where I said we had a list of some of the quote-unquote tomato cans that Rocky Marciano fought. How about the big fights? How many of those did he have? How many has Mayweather had? So I at the end of the day, I think there's too many things you can point to where it looks bad that the one that breaks the record is against a guy who is not a professional boxer. I get that, but unfortunately, I don't think it's obviously not going to matter.
And look, Pop Rockos tweets at me, records are meant to be broken. The Hank Aaron reference is ridiculous. McGregor is a fighter, not a beer league softball player. Here's what I'll say. I mean, I'm listening to people like Max Kellerman, who knows 1,000 times more about boxing than I do, who has covered fighting for HBO for years and years, and if you know Max, you know how well he knows the sport. I hear him saying if Floyd wants to, he could end this fight anytime he wants to, and that McGregor will not touch him if Floyd doesn't want him to. Now, that's not me talking. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm telling you this is someone who knows boxing way better than I do telling you that's the case. So maybe a beer league softball player isn't the perfect analogy, but maybe bringing a guy up from single A to pitch to Aaron would have been a better analogy. And for those of you just joining us, what I said was for him to break Marciano's record on this fight against a guy who's not a professional boxer would be like Hank Aaron hitting his 715th home run against the guy they brought out of the stands who was a great beer league softball player. Okay, let's say that's overstating it. How about bringing a guy up from the low minor leagues to throw that pitch so that Aaron would hit the home run? One way or another, if you treasure the record, it feels a little bit hollow. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'd agree. And you keep trying to search for the perfect other sport analogy for this, and I just don't know if there is one. I think back to a couple years ago when I forget his name, but the rugby player came over and went to training camp with the San Francisco 49ers.
Right.
And tried to play in there. Sports with a comparable skill set because fighting, mixed martial arts, boxing is a facet of that. Like there are people in mixed martial arts who are primarily known as strikers or boxers and have that as part of it, but it's one small part of an overall skill set, whereas, again, Floyd Mayweather and boxers have taken that one skill set and spent a lifetime mastering it.
Jared Hayne was the name of the rugby player. Again, I'm not sure how to look at it. It's only because it's a 50th fight. What if this were the 37th fight? Would anybody
Probably
be saying
not,
anything? But it's still a fight is a fight. When did Rocky Marciano? When did he fight the guy that only had one professional fight? Do we put that? It wasn't his 49th fight to make him 49-0. It wasn't a record-breaking fight. Would we have had an issue then? No, because people said, "Well, he's a professional boxer. He got in the ring." When I'm sure everybody had zero thought process that guy could do anything to Rocky Marciano in the ring, or he's had bouts like that. So. This one, the optics of it, I get are bad, but I don't think enough to sit there and say we need to put an asterisk next to this.
What is the analogy? So MMA is to boxing as what is to what? Do you know what I mean? Like what?
Yeah.
Is it as rugby is to football?
Yeah. What is MMA to boxing is something is to X is to football, X is to baseball, all X is to blank.
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't have the answer.
I don't either.
But will we find that out on Saturday? I mean, what we may not know, if the fight winds up being a good fight, what we may not know is if Mayweather just allowed it to be. Right? If Mayweather, based upon all the money involved and everything else, just didn't want to end it quickly, and so he allows it to look as though it was really a fight. I don't know. The people who really know boxing, the Teddy Atlases and others of the world, may be able to give you in the post-fight analysis that was a joke. That wasn't a fight in any way.
Here would be my thought process. I'm not buying into the Mayweather is going to lose this for the rematch and the money that's going to be.
No, me neither. No,
I'm not into it. So if I'm Mayweather, the minute I step into that ring and the bell rings, I have my money. I would try and go and show McGregor and MMA and everybody else, son, you're in the wrong business. You stepped into my world, and I'm going to show you how fast I can end, if he truly can. And I don't know about that part of it, but that would be my thought process. I don't think he's looking for that rematch, because to do that, he would have to lose. And if he loses, that would, to me, would do way more harm to his legacy and to boxing as a whole. So that bell rings. He's got his $400 million. I would try and end that thing as quick as I can to say, you didn't belong in the ring with me.
How similar are racquetball and squash? Like my daughter started playing a little squash.
That is a question that only you are qualified to answer at this table.
Actually, I've never played either one, so I don't know.
I used to play a lot of racquetball, actually, but I've never played squash, so I've no clue.
I've seen squash. I think the balls are very different. The rackets are different. The courts look the same.
All I know is there's a college in Connecticut that is won Trinity.
Yeah.
Championship.
They're like the greatest squash. They were a dynasty of unmatched proportion. I'm just trying to figure out something that would be similar.
Somebody will.
If a racquetball player tried to play squash, would they just get annihilated, or could they actually hold their own a little bit? We'll find that out a little bit with McGregor coming up. We'll also ask Brett Okamoto, our MMA reporter. He joins us off the top of the hour. We got Herbie and Desmond coming up, Chris Collinsworth, Trevor Simeon, and a whole lot more.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's hard. I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
Here's a good one. Greg Conor tweets, this fight is the equivalent of a decathlete competing against the world champion in any one event of it.
That's a pretty good one.
That's the best analogy I've heard so far.
Speaking of which, isn't the 30 for 30 isn't coming out? The Dave and oh my God, the two.
Dan and Dave.
Yeah.
Is it a 30 for 30 podcast, or is it a full 30 for 30?
It's a 30 for 30 podcast.
It's something that has to do with 30 for 30. That's all I know.
Okay, good. Okay. You got that right.
See?
Congratulations.
But so it
That's
isn't
pretty good.
What it isn't equivalent to is Ronaldo Nehemiah, who was he a sprinter or a hurdler? Now I can't remember, but he tried to play football. Remember, he came into the NFL.
Because to go back to your point really quick, because I think it's a good one. Take the top decathlete in the world, and put them in each individual event against the world record holder in that event, and that decathlete is not going to beat them.
I can't take the credit for it. There's a tweet from Greg Conor,
good one.
so let's give him the credit for it.
Good one.
That is
good.
Greg. So, for example, the events that are in the decathlon, the javelin toss or whatever it is, how close?
Toss the javelin?
Throw, the javelin throw. What does one do with a javelin?
You're gonna
whatever the Night King did.
That's exactly right.
Whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like, what is the difference between the world record javelin throw and whatever the guy who won the decathlon?
Discus, shot put,
long jump,
all that.
Right, all of these events. The winner of the decathlon, does it include a marathon? It's a long run.
No, it's not a marathon.
It's a long run. So whatever the long run is, how close is the decathlon gold medalist in time to the person who actually holds the world record in that event?
I think that one wins. I think that's the best one.
That's the best one.
Good
But
analogy.
to your point, that's also something we can go and check. Like, we probably can get the numbers on whoever won gold in the decathlon in the Olympics and then compare all of those times and distances.
Exactly right.
And see how close it would be.
Right.
But then to your point, that's objective. Like, it's time, it's distance, it's all these things that we can measure. And to Greeny's point earlier, it's a lot harder in a fight where there's nuance and subjectivity. What we talk about all the time with boxing scoring is, as much as it's based on supposed to be how you land punches. We saw that come up with the fight that was on ESPN a while back.
Down in Australia.
The
Was it
Pacquiao fight.
Yeah.
Where he lost, where everyone thought he won, but he lost.
They rescored it for no reason at all.
Exactly.
The 2-minute report.
Yeah. But in that one, I thought that Pacquiao won the fight, but it wasn't so ridiculously one-sided. What people are suggesting is that this one is going to be so ridiculous that you will say to yourself that even the casual eye, just the three of us are sports fans, none of us are fight experts, that all three of us will be able to tell practically immediately those two guys don't belong in the same ring together.
Right.
Like if you ever go to I mean, almost any sport, you could see
when somebody doesn't belong.
When someone doesn't belong.
You can tell it right away.
Right.
We're going to be able to see in this. That's why.
Or we won't. Or it won't look that way.
You're right.
If I fought you, if you and I had an actual fight.
It would be just when is Golic going to knock him out?
It would take as long as you decided for it to take. So and that's what Mayweather is going to do.
And I don't know because, listen, it's not like tomato can boxers that step in the ring and get knocked out aren't tough because they are boxing. But the one thing you got to say about McGregor, listen, when he loses in that sport, it's because you're getting choked out or something like that. You know, McGregor's only lost, 2-3 times? I don't think it's ever been to being knocked out.
No, the fight against Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz was a striker. He stood up and he beat the absolute hell out of him. That was exactly how he got beat.
But he ended up choking him out to win. He ended up choking out McGregor to win. But you're right. He knocked the hell out of him.
Yeah, he
standing up and boxing.
McGregor tried to stand up against a guy that was more known for that and got.
You're right.
Is you know what?
It's going, and we're going to be able to tell. Pretty quickly about where this is going to. But that's one of the reasons we're all watching is we know McGregor is tough. We know he can throw a hard punch, and you're wondering can a punch get in there?
All right, and a final thought here before we let Mikey go. We have Brett Okamoto on his way. We got Herbie and Dez in the next hour and a whole lot more. But I just got a note here that is called Fun with Wonderlicks. Here we go. Their Wonderlick scores. Peyton Manning, 28. John Elway, 29. Tom Brady, 33. Aaron Rodgers, 35. Mike Golic, 36. You got a higher Wonderlick score than Rodgers, Brady, Elway, or Peyton Manning. How about that? I'm out. Junior, you don't remember what you got?
No.
Can we find that? I mean, I would like to know that.
Probably not. You need to go to the